Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting live Kabbalah Q&A with Senior Kabbalah Instructor Tony Kosinec. Thank you for joining us today. The audience for this Q&A is typically a combination of students who are already studying the wisdom of Kabbalah and those who are curious about the wisdom, so you might be joining us for the first time. In either case, we encourage you to ask your questions. You can do that by posting them in the chat. Also, if you'd like to share your location, your country, city, state, etc., you can also post those in the chat, and I'll announce those a little bit later on in the broadcast. We do provide simultaneous translation for Spanish-speaking viewers, so I'll make note of those questions as they come in. So those of you who speak Spanish, please send in your questions. We really look forward to them. So let's get to your questions with Senior Kabbalah Instructor Tony Kosinec, who's also been studying Kabbalah for, I think it's about 30 years. Great to be with you, Tony.
Good to be with you, Mary, and with all the people who are joining us online. Yes, this is for people for the general public, for people who have some kind of curiosity about Kabbalah and perhaps want to know a lot more about it than what's available in general. What is Kabbalah? Kabbalah is a method that connects us to and allows us to fulfill the purpose of our life. Now, the purpose of life, what is the meaning of life, is a kind of question that's the basis of jokes, that's impossible. But that's the premise from which Kabbalah begins. It begins by explaining, to the degree that we can grasp it at our level of development, what the purpose of life is, and then it brings us along a path so that this becomes self-evident to us, and it provides us a method that allows us to fulfill it. Kabbalah says that the purpose of life is to perceive the Creator, to reach awareness of the higher force that governs all of reality. Perceiving the Creator is the missing element in our lives. And that's what makes, without having it, we feel suffering, emptiness, and especially the lack of meaning. Now, Kabbalah tells us that the Creator's intention is to give us delight and pleasure, to fulfill us. And human beings are built with the desire to receive all this pleasure. And the pleasure comes from aligning with this purpose. Because the real identity of all of the pleasures that we seek is actually the connection to the Creator dressed in different forms according to what our ego tells us. And all of the suffering and the satisfaction that we feel is constantly pushing us to ask about this purpose, especially when the physical pleasures fail to satisfy us. And it's this restlessness of desire that's part of humanity's spiritual evolution. It's the force that's moving it. Kabbalah describes this, opens it up to us, and lets us participate in that. Because nature is driving us constantly to that final goal of the purpose, to become similar in quality to the Creator, to be inwardly altruistic, unified, and completely conscious. All levels of creation, all levels of nature serve humanity, but humanity's purpose is to find out who it serves. And when a person starts asking this question, that's really the beginning of a spiritual awakening for a person, and Kabbalah calls this the opening of the point in the heart. That's the desire for spirituality. And Kabbalah offers the method that allows you to attain that purpose while you're living in this world by transforming our egoism, our desire to receive for ourselves, into the desire to bestow, which for us is to receive this pleasure in order to fulfill the Creator's desire to fulfill us. And I know that sounds a bit convoluted, but in that is the ability, is the seed of the ability to change our egoism and completely rise above it. Spiritual development is really the only purpose and the only lasting fulfillment that there is. And Kabbalah is studied to awaken this perception of the Creator, and that brings security, meaning, spiritual life, and a sense of eternity. And that perception is called faith. And what faith is the light that connects us to the Creator. Okay, Mary, let's get to our first questions.
Okay, great. Tony, the first question comes from Reza, watching on YouTube. Living in an abstract state of life, by quieting the logical mind after understanding its patterns, this has been my personal experience. Is this connected to Kabbalah?
The perception of how nature works and what the law of nature is and how we can live with it and how that changes our perception of reality comes from first doing what you're saying and going as far as one possibly can with reason, and then raising above that, because the way that the mind works has got to do with what its root is. And a root is a desire. If the root of our knowledge and our reason is our will to receive or our egoism, which it truly is, it's really an operating system that helps fulfill a particular desire, whether it's egoistic or altruistic. So if the root, and this is the barrier that we have, it's the ego that hides the real face of reality from us. Logic and reason coming from that particular desire becomes what occupies our minds. If we have a different, opposite desire, one of bestowal, which is not actually in our nature but can be learned and can be attained, we can rise above that desire, and therefore Kabbalah develops this and develops a spiritual mind, connects us to the actual, let's call it a mind, but it's beyond that, to the entire system that guides everything. So what we're trying to do is to go to the limits of our reason based on egoism and to go above that into a connection or a faith that exists above that reason. So we don't abandon logic and knowledge. We use it as a stepping stone to experience faith or connection to the upper force directly in the heart.
Next question, Tony, comes from Adam from Colorado. Are we created to create something to reach the Creator, and is it connected to the Big Bang Theory?
Can you repeat the first part of the question? Are we created to create something?
Correct.
How's that go?
Yeah, sure. Are we created to create something to reach the Creator?
Yeah. We are created to discover how to use all of the things that nature has given us in order to reach the Creator. These are everything that we are, everything that surrounds us in the universe, in our emotional life and in our logical life, in our physicality, and in our desire for spirituality. All of those things only exist as a bridge that allow us to reach the spiritual qualities. We're not making that, but we have to work at coming to recognize these things for what they are, what their purpose is, and how to engage with them so that we climb on them, that it becomes a relationship through those things with the Creator. These things are already provided to us. It's just that we have to take the blinders from our eyes by learning to think again out of the heart rather than out of the mind. And this allows us to use everything that's been given to us in order to reach the goal that was also given to us when we came into this world.
Tony, Kamari Deepa is asking, why would the Kabbalah method be the only one path to fulfill the perception of the higher force, when such purpose and similar methods are offered by Eastern paths?
It is not the only path. Never said that. Nature is the only path, but understanding nature, its meaning, its connection to us, and experiencing it, like actually attaining it, is what Kabbalah is. Kabbalah is the insight into the law of nature that provides for spiritual ascent. To any degree that any other path also acknowledges this full set of laws based in one overarching law, then they can provide some connection, or perhaps entire connection, but in the end, it will be the same as Kabbalah. Kabbalah is distilled, if it actually reaches that place, all of the different names of paths that we have come from cultures. They are divisions of that the mind makes on the single reality. The whole point is to put all of these things together. What I can say about Kabbalah is that it does contain the entire path, the entire ascent. And it's the root of every other wisdom anyway. So it's not the only path. It is an excellent path, and in some cases quite more fully developed, because these other paths, including the Eastern paths, came originally from the single source of wisdom. And that's what Kabbalah actually is. But it's not, it's not the one and only. Nature and what the Creator created in his communication with us is the only. And Kabbalah is a path that provides a complete grasp of the natural law leading from physicality to spirituality.
So the next question comes from This Space is Alive. The space certainly is alive. Actually, that's a username, and the viewer's name is Tom from Toronto. In a reading in week 1, it says that Western science started with Kabbalah, since Pythagoras studied it in secret. But academics say Kabbalah started in the 12th century. Why the difference?
Because the academics are wrong. They're associating the beginning of Kabbalah with the reemergence of the text of the Zohar at that point in 12th century Spain. The Zohar itself was written 2 centuries ago, at the point of the destruction of the Second Temple. And prior to that, and that was a compilation of Kabbalistic wisdom and so on, that had proceeded for 1,000 or more years prior to that. It was the fundamental wisdom that Abraham taught, and it goes back even as far as 5,000 years ago, and that's what the dating of the Hebrew calendar is about, the emergence of the spiritual awareness in humanity and the initial connection with the upper force. And there's a book that exists back from that time of 5,000 years ago, written by a Kabbalist called Adam HaRishon, called the Angel Raziel. This is a very, very, very long history, and this is when the upper force gave wisdom to humanity, and it predates modern academia, and the academia can't touch wisdom. It can only categorize and collect, but it's not, the people who talk about it as academics are not practitioners. There's a completely different level, and entirely empty of what Kabbalah actually speaks about, or its relationship to time and space. Let's leave it at that.
Cynthia Caspi is asking, how do I transform the pattern of overgiving without closing my heart? And how do I shift from giving to avoid discomfort to giving in alignment with the Creator?
Overgiving is a psychological thing. It's not spiritual. It has to do with adjustment to the social environment that you're in, and coping with it. It's a psychological thing. Spiritual giving is something entirely different, and it happens. You have to develop into it. You have to be in even though at the beginning of learning Kabbalah, many things are revealed. That is, like the essential forces or desires that are the only things that exist in our reality. Reception and bestowal. These are the only forces that we contend with. But they're not the only components to the methodology. First, we have to know these things. We have to know many targets that are presented to us in authentic Kabbalistic texts that allow us to slowly begin to change the way that we're perceiving, and have correct definitions that connect to the heart in a way that really connect to our perceptions. Then after we have these fundamentals, one of which you're mentioning in your question, then the methodology involves work with other people. And this is extremely important, because the opening of what bestowal means only has meaning between people, right? And I'm not addressing the psychological, problem that you're talking about. But the spiritual aspect of giving has got to do with the way in which we learn this from interacting with other people who are also learning this, not with the general public, and in a kind of a working group, which is part of the methodology, which you will be provided, if you continue your studies. There, you will be able to determine the difference between giving in order to satisfy some external necessity, whether it's egoistic or material or whatever, and the one that is only related to the quality of the Creator, to want to be like that. That happens and gets refined, and our perception about that grows when we interact with other people only for that purpose. And that doesn't happen in general society. So you can look forward to that and keep learning the fundamentals, because those will be your tools. Mary?
Tony, our next question comes from a Spanish-speaking viewer, Luisaza Avedra Tameo. Question: if the Rav tells us that the inclination toward evil will always accompany us until the end, then at what point do we reach a complete state of correction and dveikut, adhesion?
When we're able to work with both of these, when we understand the way in which nature works with us, it uses a force to pull us closer, to enlighten and lift us, to inspire us, to reveal to us, and it also uses a force that pushes us. And the dissatisfaction and discomfort and the pressure that we're under by what we called, evil or suffering, or however you described it, is a necessary function in nature that is constantly developing all life at different forms. On the level of the human, it's felt as good and bad. And that's what our suffering is based on, that perception. It's necessary. Both of these things are a dynamic force that develops something else entirely. And it's this third thing that gets developed that encompasses both the good and the bad, and understands that force and uses it only for the connection with the Creator. This is when the correction occurs in the heart, when truly, as a perception, we accept, understand, and delight, and feel thankful for this process, and stop seeing it as something that is either good or bad, but that is very good, that is totally combined, and it works as to assist and lift us.
Tony, Eastjock wants to know, how does intention work?
It's what you truly want, and meaning where are you aiming this? For whose fulfillment are you desiring? It is fundamentally what we really want. What is it that we really want? That's intention. It's not the desire itself, it's the direction of the desire. It doesn't matter what we desire. Intention is a force over that desire that moves it in a particular, the fulfillment that we are desiring, in a particular direction. Am I doing this? It's like, you can think of it in terms of praying. When a person prays, they can say, "Oh, make me spiritual. Show me your love. Reveal yourself to me." That, as opposed to the desire for others to have the experience of being connected with the Creator. That all of what we see should become fulfilled. That's an intention for fulfillment, and of course all that we see also includes us, But if the vector by which this request or prayer is moving is for the benefit of others or of the whole, that's what we would describe as the intention. The direction of a desire is an intention.
Our next question comes from Hamid. Hello. If a scientist can study DNA, can a Kabbalist study his own Reshimo and understand his root? If yes, how? And thank you.
I'm trying to look at that from the way in which you phrased the question. You posed it. Yes, the whole point of how a Kabbalist works is to recognize the contact with the Creator. The Reshimo, or the records that speak of a higher connection with the light. These things come by way of challenge. The challenge is in relation to other people. To love, in the heart, to love over hatred, to work not with the reactive impulse to satisfy the self, but to look at what enhances the relationship, what gives to the other in the relationship, to see the well-being of the other in the case where the ego is telling exactly the opposite, and all reason is saying, of course that's right. This, to recognize in the work, when you are touching a record, a reshima, it comes as a challenge in relationship, in terms of judging other people or laying a problem or a resistance on something external, rather than working on going above that aspect of the heart and giving, let's say, giving's the wrong word, but nonetheless, forgetting the self and acting according to the Creator's quality. Meeting one of those resistances, that's a reshima, and on the other side of that is an attainment, is growth, is light that comes. And that's how it happens, and it's not like a scientist who can calculate it and make a list. This is experiential doing, it's direct experience, and it involves all aspects of your life and is a lifelong engagement. It's the science of life, in all of its depth, width, length, and apparent time over a lifespan. So that's the only thing that a Kabbalist does.
Hey, Tony, I'd like to take just a minute to let viewers know that right after this Q&A session, there's a live Q&A session with Tony on Zoom, where you can ask any questions you want to Kabbalah's answers to and get them answered live. You can ask Tony follow-up questions. We'll be there right after this broadcast at the top of the hour if you'd like to join. So you just go to KabbuConnect.com/live and you can see the links in the chat. Be very exciting to see you there after this broadcast. Our next question comes from Spanish-speaking viewer Pedro Pablo Garcia. How do we know when we are starting to reach higher levels?
When you feel yourself going against your nature. The heart knows. The heart knows. It becomes confusing until we know what we're actually looking for. And it takes some time to understand what the goal really is, because our mind can't really tell us about this goal. Only experience can do it. The mind and the texts are there to, as I say, to give us targets, but that doesn't mean we understand them when we first read them. The main thing that happens is we stop thinking that we understand life and what spirituality is and the direction to take. These definitions of connection and light and what all those things seem to be to us first disconnect us from wrong ways of perceiving. Then we strive to truly understand what the goal is and where inside of one's emotional life these things exist. Because it lays out, the texts themselves, including the technical texts, lay out the complete landscape of our emotional life, our whole inner life. And as a matter of fact, there is no external life. There is only the inner life. There is only the emotive connection to the communication presented to us by the light and extended to us through the world, and especially through the connection with other people. But this is not something we recognize at first. But it's not up to us to figure the entire thing out. It's through efforts that we attract this correcting light. The desire to understand what those things are, to work towards them. The work is full of mistakes. Without them, there couldn't be any achievement at all. The mistake shows what it's not, what it's not, what it's not, and reveals what it is. And when it happens, as it happens, the heart knows, because the heart never lies. But we have to be able to tell the difference between heart and mind. They're not the same thing, though the mind tries to disguise itself as the heart.
Tony from South Africa, Lissetti is asking, if the path of Kabbalah is spiritual and is against my ego, what are the signs that I'm following or going in the right path instead of other paths?
Well, I don't know about that last thing about other paths, but I'm speaking strictly about Kabbalah. It has to do with when you do what the ego tells you not to do in relation to other people, study and effort and so on. Then you know when you're experiencing resistance. Let me put it this way. You get no resistance on a spiritual path and have no contact with spirituality unless one starts to do something that actually goes against the will to receive, against the core of the ego. And until one feels the resistance from the ego, we're not touching anything spiritual. Because the definition of spirituality in Kabbalah is bestowal. The quality of, this is what the Creator is. It is a quality, it is the intention to bestow without a thought of the self in order to fulfill the entire system, all of life, to bring pleasure and fulfillment to all of life. We are made of the actual opposite of that, which is the desire to fulfill myself. And even if fulfilling others, it's to fulfill the self, and so on. So many spiritual paths are very pleasing to the ego. And it's possible to deceive ourselves for a long period of time. But on any path, you can only say that you are engaged with the light when the ego feels a resistance and says, I don't want to do this, or I won't do this particular thing because of the ego. If there's no resistance, there's no light. It's like space is dark, and it seems completely dark, but it's filled with light. You can only see the light if there's some resistance there, like dust in a dark room. Then you can see a beam of light lighting up the dust, or planets show you that light exists in some place if you are floating in space. This is how you know that you are touching the beginning of touching spirituality.
Tony, you mentioned ego and resistance. A follow-up question that Magdaleneo has is, what is the role of the ego?
The role of the ego is to help us attain spirituality. It is a faithful friend that pressures and accompanies us and indicates to us the opposite of what it is. And it goes with us the entire way. It was made in order to facilitate the fulfillment of the purpose of life, but not by using it directly, but by using it as an assistant and understanding its usefulness and in the correct way.
Tony, the next question comes from Wagner. Did the Creator develop human behavior in such a way that we see so much chaos now, and in order to force us to awakening/enlightenment, we now see a climax coming?
Well, yes, in general, to what you asked. Human behavior is the type of human behavior that's contributing. There's two things going on. One is there is a general spiritual pressure that is forcing all of humanity to acknowledge the need for the connection to the upper force and the understanding that we are a single being. And to make the changes, internal changes, that will allow us to live that state instead of constantly working against it. Human behavior, now that's the force of nature that's coming from the Creator. What you're seeing in human nature is the ignorance of that, and the conviction that external things are going to change that it's possible to come to a unified state in which all humanity is accepted and nourished by us. We can't live in that kind of unity, that kind of socialist, communistic, holistic way of being without changing the most fundamental aspects of our nature. That's what Kabbalah is about. It's to enable us to get past these kinds of very profound pressures and changes that occur through history. But it's all purposeful. But it requires a response from us for sure. Just the pressure won't do the job. It's the correct response to the pressure, and we're trying to, as much as possible, as far as we know and as much as we can share this, to give this wisdom of how to actually live in a completely global, holistic reality, which is what we're being pushed towards. Humanity's resisting it because it doesn't want to change, wants other people to change. Mary?
Now, Tony, a related question comes from Spanish-speaking viewer Ruby Souza Carranza. Hello, Tony and friends. Must all of humanity attain this wisdom of Kabbalah without exception? Thank you.
No. All of humanity will attain the goal of creation. But Kabbalah is for people who are consciously aware of this need in them, and the people who study this serve a function for helping unify this awareness and bring it up even in aspects of humanity, the great numbers, let's call it, of humanity that's not awakened, that it comes up in a not completely conscious way, but people just will feel moved to agree with it. But unless a core of humanity does this, and it doesn't have to be big, it can be quite small, unless that happens consciously, the rest of humanity can't unconsciously begin to think, yes, that's the right way to live. So no, not everybody has to do it, but there is some particular spearhead work that does have to happen. And it's not just Kabbalists, but those aimed at that goal with a real method to bring it into conscious awareness. It's a special kind of work at a certain level. There's other kinds of work at other levels and so on, and it covers all of creation.
Tony, I was just looking at the list of where our viewers are tuned in from today. So this is so exciting. I don't think we've ever had such a long list of locations. So let's go. Florida, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Salt Lake City, Utah, Toronto, Canada, Berlin, Germany, Barcelona, Spain, Leipzig, Arkansas, Colombia, Costa Rica, Mexico, Chile, Shreveport, Louisiana, Berthoud, Colorado, Netherlands, South Africa, Venezuela, Peru, Veracruz, Hamilton, New Jersey, Ontario, Canary Islands, Toronto, Belle Harbor, New York, La Paz, California, France, Turkey, Tennessee, Nigeria, Costa Rica, two friends from Costa Rica, I love it there, Czech Republic, Sao Paulo, Brazil, Boston, Charlotte, North Carolina, Delaware, Arkansas, Berlin, Germany, North Carolina, more friends from different locations and same location, Salt Lake City, Utah, Pittsburgh, PA, Florida, South Wales, UK, Vancouver, Argentina, Brazil, Scotland, and Estonia. And I think viewers are still sending in their locations. Wow, thank you so much. That's always so exciting to see how we blanket the map with all our viewers.
Yeah, that's really beautiful.
Okay, so let's go to our next question. It comes from Michael Botang. In your presentation on perfection of reality, I believe that might be perception on reality, you said our purpose in life is to create a creature. How could we create a creature?
There's a part within us I'm trying to remember what you're referring to. I think that what you're referring to is the four phases of direct light, and the third phase in which the screen starts to operate, and that so that the amount of light that is being received is limited in such a way that there is you only receive a certain percentage and the rest is reflected back to the source, and this creates a sort of receiving and giving, which is a kind of a creature within that third phase. I think that's what you're referring to. The way in which the heart creates a creature and does the same thing as what the Creator does is to begin to love the friend as the self. That our concern is for the fulfillment of others. And that makes our concern the same as the Creator's intention, to fulfill a creature completely and to feel the same way towards others and the whole of creation as the Creator does. So we are doing the same thing as the Creator's intention. His intention was to create a creature and to fulfill it completely, fulfill it. Our concern for others is made of exactly the same intention, so that we see those around us, the friends, as the self. In other words, we wish to fulfill completely that relationship between us and them, so that they are spiritually fulfilled and they reach attainment. And this is the same thing as creating a creature and bringing it to complete fulfillment. Mary?
Thank you, Tony. The next question comes from Santoro Engenharia. Tradition attributes the Zohar to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, but academic consensus attributes it to Moses de Leon. Do you consider that Moses de Leon compiled it or channeled it? In other words, received it mystically?
No, he got the texts. He received them from somebody. It was being assembled over a long period of time. Whenever it sort of reappeared, it was hidden, it was buried, and at some point he came into possession of it, and may have arranged it in some way, but he didn't channel it. No. He received it. And that was the first broad revelation of that book, was at that point. But up until then, it had been hidden. But Kabbalists, people who attain beyond time and place, know that these writings occurred during the period of the destruction of the Second Temple and the Roman conquests, and know of the times and ways in which these texts were hidden. And they were subsequently hidden as well, even after De Leon. But I don't think we have all the texts. We don't have all the parts of it. That's the best I can do with that.
Next question comes from Spanish-speaking viewer Gina Ortiz. Good afternoon. Buenos dias, Gina. Gina's question, can you name all the laws that are related to spirituality?
There is one overarching law, which is the general law of reality, and that is love your friend as yourself. Every other law cascades from that one. Now, if you think about love your friend as yourself, and you take it out of the sort of kindergarten perspective that we give this, it is a command, a law that says to change perception from separation into not only the acknowledgement but the attainment that this is one holistic creature. Every aspect of what we see is the self. There is no self. There is this relationship incorporating all of these pieces like cells in a single body, all making up a single life. And that life in relation to a single source. Love your friend as yourself is the acknowledgement that others exist within the heart and all of it is the self, making it not a self at all, but a single, a unified life. And to live that way out of direct experience of that as being so. Every other thing that is said or that you could call a law only leads a person from wherever they are and however concealed this truth may be to them, to eventually, these are paths that lead a person, a soul, to that perception of a single soul against a single creator. One force against the other, in adhesion with each other. Love your friend as yourself is the spiritual law.
Tony, you mentioned force. Ruby Souza Carranza is asking, what force draws us to the study of Kabbalah and prevents us from leaving it? Is it perhaps the importance of the study?
Well, that's really nice. That question is really nice. Yeah, importance, of course, but what makes something important, is something in the heart changes. And as a result of this change, we're moved, there is a pressure inside of us to attain this, to achieve it, to find it, to open it, to reveal it. This is the fundamental force of life. This is the Creator actually pushing us to receive what it is that this intention wants to give us, what the upper light wants to give us. That's what moves us and turns us on. Now that's always happening, whether we're aware of it or not, but when it awakens within us to actually understand that also within reason, that this is what we want, and we want to know more about this, and we understand that it's based on, we can feel that, I'm the one that has to change if I want to perceive something. It's not going to just be given to me. That's nothing. That's what I'm doing all the time anyway. And if it was given to me, I'd end up being a robot, right? I still wouldn't have changed. I would still be enslaved to receiving. So what brings us to want to know to connect us to spirituality is a gift from above, but it blooms inside of us into a conscious desire within us. Now, what keeps us there? You got to pray to hold on to it, because the ego resists and is very clever and will find a very convincing way to make humanity leave, forget about, and criticize spirituality. It happens to everybody, and it's important. Doubt is extremely important. The only thing you can do is to tell yourself anything but leave the path. And we need help from above for that, because it's not within us within our own power to stay. And it's also why we need others on the path. We do have spiritual desire, but it's very small. And the more, if we're in an environment where there are many people who want the same thing consciously, are working towards it, inspire us, give us a good example, and so on, then it helps us. And we need others, because ultimately the gate to spirituality is the love of others as the self. So that's what holds us. Ultimately, it's the Creator pushing and holding, but we have to ask for it. If we don't ask for it, we'll fall from it.
Tony, the next question is about the ego, from Raymond. If ego is a mere illusion, what is it that sees, hears, smells, tastes, feels, and directly knows in a non-knowing, non-egoistic way?
No, it's not the ego that is perceiving. The ego is not the self, but it has us convinced that it is the self. This is the whole illusion. No, the ego's a real thing. It's us. It's sort of us, but it's not. It is not. It's what puts us in relationship with the Creator. But the place above the ego that attains the light and feels the light is actually the Creator. And it's the relationship with that. It is the sense of connection that we have with it. And it functions, it's more powerful than the ego. It functions regardless of the ego. It created the ego. And that perception, that higher perception, actually is the Creator. Because it's not, in spirituality, it's not like object. It's not the ego in this little ball and the Creator outside of it. If we change our direction and intention to be like that force, eventually it's not that it's like that force, it is that force. It's either the force of bestowal, the quality or the intention of bestowal, or it's the intention to serve the self. And it's not a mixture of the two. In spirituality, as soon as an intention, or a desire, let's call it, is the same as another desire, it's unified. It is the same thing. It is bound up. It is it. So the thing that perceives higher spirituality is the higher spirituality, and from that place we can see also the ego and its function. We don't lose ourselves. We don't disappear. We just function in the light rather than in the darkness. Best I can do, because it's something that one has to experience. That experience does come occasionally, that it helps keep us inspired, keeps us moving, and so on. And when you taste it, and maybe you have in some experiences in the past, which is why you're here in the first place, when you get a taste of that, you know that such a thing exists. And it's not like the ego. It doesn't perceive at all like it. But it's not disconnected from it either. It's like it doesn't kill it. It's all part of a single system, except we move our brain to a different place, let's say.
Tony, Spanish-speaking viewer Aldo has a question about the senses. When Dr. Michael Lightman tells us that it is possible to change our destiny, does he mean the possibility of avoiding the conditioning of the senses and the life process that we have had?
If we don't work, changing destiny means to align with the direction of creation and its purpose. You can't do that consciously unless you work on it, meaning you study this methodology. For us, that's what it means. That, if you don't do that, if we remain just in sort of the hammock of the ego, then our destiny is clear. We will reincarnate and reincarnate and reincarnate through into many lives of suffering. Or, at the very least, if you want to think of it as a single life, we will go through life without any fulfillment or revelation. But if we work for this, try to align ourselves with the purpose for which we were created, then our destiny becomes completely different than the destiny of someone remaining in reception. All of eternity opens up, all connection, no limitation to what we might call love or connection, as opposed to the extreme limitation of love and connection that we experience by functioning out of reception. It's the life we already know. It's the one that that is empty of fulfillment. But the conscious work along this path is the thing that breaks those boundaries and brings us into really another world. A Kabbalist lives in two worlds at the same time, anchored in the physical and all that is necessary and all the good that can be done in the physical, but seeing it for what it is, which is actually a spiritual world, and that is not an idea. That becomes an experience, the actual perception of one's reality. This is a very different destiny than the default one that happens before conscious awareness and desire to acknowledge that we were created for this purpose and to do all that we can to contribute to our fulfillment along the path. I think with that one we'll end the questions, and Mary has some announcements for you.
Okay, there's so many great questions left. I hate to end at this point, but thank you for all your questions. They're incredible questions today. Very exciting. So just a reminder, if you want to join the live Q&A session that follows this one, it's a live Q&A on Zoom with Tony, so you can ask your questions. It's very personal. It's not broadcast to the public. We would love to see you there. Also, if you're not already a Kabbu member, then we invite you to join. You can see the link in the chats, and you'll gain access to several Kabbalah courses, beginners to advanced, join the world's largest online Kabbalah community, the ability to ask instructors questions in the student forums, access to a Kabbu exclusive weekly webinar, and also you get access to the next Kabbalah Revealed course with Tony which starts on December 14th. And if you find our content valuable, you can always support KabU. You can do that in one of two ways: become a KabU member, or you can make a donation. It helps to support all of our broadcasts. And mentioning broadcasts, a huge thank you to all of our tech team in the background that makes everything run so smoothly for these Q&As. And special thanks to you, Tony. Amazing, amazing session.
Yeah, this was really, I really enjoyed these questions. They really were quite deep. And you said that there were still a lot of great questions, huh?
Yeah, great questions. And before we sign out, let me just check other locations. I'd love to read those. Yes, we do have more. República Dominicana, Venezuela, Tulancingo, Mexico, Cordoba, Argentina, Kenya, Uruguay, Ireland, Reverie du Loup, Quebec. Merci beaucoup. Thank you so much, friends. What an exciting segment. Thank you.
Thanks, friends.